Afternoon, VC. All right, so this is going to be one of the craziest stories to involve a record that I've dealt with over the years. So buckle up. So where to begin? This might be a lengthy video. I think it was September 26th. I saw an article that posted by Dusty Groove about a record collector passing away, and that's Joe Bussard, or Buzzard. I'm not sure how it was exactly pronounced, his last name, spelled Bussard. But he was the preeminent collector of rare 78s from the 20s and 30s. And he believed that rock and roll destroyed music, so he didn't have anything really from the 50s on in his collection. But the way he collected these records is just astounding to think about how that was done. And there's a documentary about him. I'll leave a link to it. So yeah, I saw the article listed, and I was like, oh, I need to watch the documentary. And come Wednesday night, I got a chance to watch the documentary. Great stuff in there. He used to love to have people come over to spin records at his place. He just invites, so there are a lot of celebrities that would actually go by there because of the stuff in there is just museum quality. Jack White went over there, and I think Joe told him, you know, when I put this record on, it's going to sound like the musicians are in the room with us. And he didn't have, you know, the super state-of-the-art equipment. He had pretty good equipment, though, especially for 78s. I think he used wooden needles, and he would swap them out. But he played this record for Jack White and absolutely blew his mind. And there's, you know, the story about how he would go with a friend. They'd drive, he was in Maryland, and they'd drive down to West Virginia, and just knock on doors. They'd just go into neighborhoods he thought there'd be records in. You know, there were certain houses he'd pick out, you know, if they had old doilies in the window or whatever, and he'd just, you know, see if he could buy some records from some people. Because a lot of, you know, the 78s were just, you know, going to go in the trash bin when the LP came along. So, but he had heard Jimmy Rogers and was hooked, so he was just trying to find everything he could, and that led to, you know, picking up old blues and jazz records and those types of things, and so he would collect all that too. But you know, there's one story, him and his buddy were driving down an old road, probably West Virginia, and they started to smell moonshine, came up on some stills, and they're like, we probably should get out of here. And no, he just pulled right up, and you know, people came out of the house with Gatling guns, and his buddy slunk down in the seat, thought he was a goner. And Joe just gets out of the car, I'm Joe Bussard, and got any records? And the guy's like, hey, Ma, you're never going to believe is in the front yard. And they invite him in and sell him records. It's freaking crazy. This guy. But he was doing a pirate radio station from out of his basement playing these records, and it was played in West Virginia, and so those people knew who he was. But yeah, a lot of cool stories like that in that doc, so I'll leave a link. But I watched it on, you know, he passed away on Monday. I watched the doc on Wednesday night, and it got the wheels turning. As far as 78s are concerned, I've only really ever been looking for one for a few years now, and had pretty much I've never seen one come up for sale. There's never been one listed as sold on Discogs. No sale history. There is a video on YouTube playing the record, so someone does have the record that posted it being played. Teddy sent me that link. And there's just a small handful of rare 78 collectors in the country. It's not, you know, it's not that big of a thing. Let's just say that the 78 collecting world is a lot smaller one than than our YouTube vinyl community LP thing that we do. And so I just was like, let me look at Discogs for shits and giggles to see if this record's there. And the record in question is featured in this book that I've showed a few times on this channel, and that's Omniverse, basically the Sun Ra Bible. Art Yard had a hand in putting this out, written by Hart McGurkin and Chris Trent. Hart McGurkin is a musician from Germany that lived in Cairo, Egypt. He's the main reason that Sun Ra went and did those sessions in Egypt, and was one of the largest collectors of Sun Ra records. And so in this book, they, do chronological order, and there's about 275 releases. And the first one listed is this 78 right here. And it's Chocolate Avenue by Clarence Williams and his orchestra from 1933. And I'll go to the listing and read the history about this record to you. So before graduating from high school, Sun Ra, or Herman Poole Blunt, as he then was known, sent this composition, among several others, to the prominent pianist and bandleader Clarence Williams in New York, an incident mentioned by Sun Ra in interviews in the 1980s, and detailed in Chapter 1 of Space is the Place, The Lives and Times of Sun Ra. I think I also have that book. Clarence Williams used the composition without composer credit or acknowledgement of any kind. It remains the only known recorded example of Sun Ra's musical activity in the 1930s. They believe he wrote the song in 1929 or 1930. He would have been 18 or 19 years old at the time. He was born in 1911. But yeah, you've got Ed Allen on cornet, Cecil Scott on clarinet, Clarence Williams on piano, an unknown guitarist, and Floyd Casey on washboard. Recorded September 1st, 1933 in New York, as I said. The B-side was not written by Sun Ra, Dispossessing Me. That's unrelated to him. And so that's the deal with that. And again, like I said, I went to Discogs after seeing the doc, and sure enough, there's one for sale, which is crazy. So you take pause when something that rare is going to pop up for sale, especially since, to my knowledge, Hart McGurkin was the only person to have a copy, but I'm sure there were others, like I said. But as far as Discogs, there's only one in a collection listed of anybody that would actually log their collection on Discogs, so that's, only one though. So the seller's name has nothing to do with records. It doesn't say where they are in the country, but they are in the United States. They have 400 and some feedbacks. And so I started looking at feedback. Only one, neutral, no negative, if I remember correctly. And the neutral was just a condition, oh, well, he said it was VG plus, but it's VG. But they actually grade 78s differently. It's different. It's a different grading system, but as far as the grade they gave this, it was considered basically mint. So that's another reason I took pause. That rare and old 78, it's an 89-year-old record. Is it really going to be mint? But the price was, the price was really low. Another reason to be, are you sure? You got what you're listing here? Let's just say it was cheaper than the new Joe Strummer box set. It's a priceless record. Let's just be frank about it. So, perfect feedback. All the feedback has to do with 78s. I'm like, well, PayPal, he takes it, so I got buyer protection. So I buy the record, and that was on Wednesday night. Usually you give it a couple of days to clear PayPal or whatever, and then you'll hear something back from a seller, oh, got your payment, we'll send it out so and so, or you'll at least get some kind of acknowledgement. But before that, after I bought it, I went and I looked at, I don't know why I didn't do it beforehand, but I looked at other listings for sale. And I'm seeing nothing but the rarest of rare 78s, like Carter Family, Jimmy Rogers, early Dizzy, extremely rare 78s. So I was like, that could be a bad sign, that could be a good sign, because I thought that's a good sign because he had this crazy rare Clarence Williams record with a song written by Sun Ra on it. But I just watched that documentary, and those specific artists are the ones that Joe specifically collected. Jimmy Rogers, Carter Family, and early blues and jazz, and that's all that this guy had. Is 2 days after he died. So I'm like, did I just buy? And when I made the payment and went to someone like Joe/Heather at Hotmail. So I'm like, did I just buy a record from a dead man? Because again, it's a day's gone by, I ain't heard anything. So I'm like, we'll give it some time, like you should. And Friday comes, nothing. Saturday comes, nothing. Ain't heard a word. So I think around noon on Saturday, I'm at the point where, all right. And I had sent a message, I think Friday, just a friendly message. Sent payment on so-and-so date. Please let me know when item ships. Thank you very much for your time, type thing. That I usually would do that on eBay in the early days of eBay, just to see if I get some acknowledgement back from the seller. But nothing. I got nothing. At least a day and a half on the message too. So I'm like, oh shit. So I'm like, well, I better find out if I bought a record from someone that's passed away, because I need to let PayPal know, or I need to figure it out. So again, the 78 world's a small one, so the wheels are turning. I'm like, well, how am I gonna figure this out? I really just need to ask if someone knows who this seller is, because again, the name, it's like, has something to do with video games. The name of the seller, it has nothing to do with records. So I call, the first call I made was to Jerry's Records in Pittsburgh, and the reason I did is because there used to be a 78 store, or I thought there was still a 78 store connected to Jerry's. There used to be, they had equipment and everything. And I call up there, and it was actually Jerry's passed away a year or two ago or so. Maybe it's been longer than that, but his brother Willie ran the 78s. I got a hold of a nice young guy at Jerry's Records, and he asked, because I told him some of the stories, he goes, do you think that maybe those are stolen? And I'm like, nah, I don't think they're stolen. But it was funny, the last positive feedback was the day before Joe died. No positive feedback after he passed. I kept looking. I kept going back and looking. I'm like, that's not a good sign either. But Willie wasn't there, and he said Willie had actually closed down the 78 part a while back, and now just keeps a small section of 78s in the shop at Jerry's. And so he's kind of out of the game. And so I didn't want to bother him with trying to get a hold of him or anything. So that was kind of a dead end. So I was just really trying to find out if, hey, do you know this seller? I mean, he's selling extremely rare 78s. Looks like he's been doing it since like maybe 2013 or something like that. So about, what's that, 9 years or so? So like, in the last 9 years, have you heard of this seller? I mean, so I ended up calling another place in Nashville that deals in 78s. And the guy immediately was like, oh yeah, he's in Connecticut or somewhere up that way. So I'm like, oh, okay. all right, Joe Bussard's in Maryland. So I'm like, okay. So feeling a little relieved now. It's probably a different different Joe or different seller. I just still ain't heard anything back yet on this. What's going on with this record that I bought? And but then it hit me finally, like Saturday night. I'm like, I wonder if this seller name is also on eBay. So I look on eBay, and sure enough, there's the guy. And this guy is selling the craziest shit you've ever seen on eBay. He's got giant goddamn spools of wire, like the kind of like goes underground, under the ocean, like for thousands of dollars starting bid. He's got some other contraption with a $10,000 starting bid. And he's got used game controllers, like video game controllers, for like old video game systems, and all kinds of crazy shit for video games. Tons of that shit. Tons. He's got tens of thousands of feedbacks on the eBay. Been on eBay forever. But then he's got a ton of rare as piss 78s on there. And he's not asking pennies for them. He's asking, a few $100 for these 78s. Not all of them, but they're rare. He at least knows they're rare. And I'm like, all right, well, how am I gonna get in touch with this guy to let him know I bought something on Discogs? And I'm like, well, there's a certain way to find out. On his 78 listings, he's got the buy it now or best offer. So he had some other cool records on there. So he had some really cool old blues. So I put in a super lowball bid on a rare blues 78, knowing it's going to get rejected. So I think I put in just under half the price of what he was asking for this 78. As a matter of fact, I put in it was probably a third of the price. And within like 2 minutes, I get a decline. So that I'm like, okay, good. They're at least in business still. I got a decline. Someone there is pushing buttons. But when you get a decline, you can contact seller. So and it's like a little text message thing now that eBay does. So you go back and forth with the seller in this like text field in the contact bar. And so I go, oh, no worries on the declined offer. I am, however, interested in a few of your 78s you have for sale here on eBay. I did just purchase the Clarence Williams record you had for sale on Discogs on Wednesday, earlier this week. Thank you for your time. Hope you have a great afternoon. And as soon as I sent that message, I get a message back. Here's the lowest I can go on this record. Thanks for your Discogs purchase. I'll make sure and get that out on Monday. And he almost met my super lowball offer, I think, knowing because I had already bought something from him. So I ended up accepting the offer. I'm like, holy shit. And Monday comes and I get a tracking number. And the guy's in Vermont. He's way up in Vermont near the St. Lawrence Seaway, like almost into Canada. What a crazy place to find a bunch of rare 78s. I mean, like I said, he's got Carter family from Tennessee, rare blues stuff. It's ridiculous. And a lot of used game controllers. So he sends, and we went, he sent both the Discogs and the eBay orders in the same box. And he sent it priority. And we both agreed to have it insured. Because of the rarity of the records. Although I still don't believe he knew what he was selling with the. I think he really just thought it was a Clarence Williams record that he was selling me, and I don't think he knows the connection to Sun Ra, or it would have been. I don't know if he would have even sold it. So, package is in the mail. You know the history of my post office here. It's rough in the streets over here in the bottoms. And so, so it shipped Monday, and I think it was Wednesday or Thursday. I think it was Wednesday. I think in 2 days it was out for delivery in the morning. There was a delivery scan to go out for delivery early in the morning, like 6 something in the morning. So that's when, supposedly it's going on the truck. And then I went to work. I get off work, come home. About 10 minutes after I'm home, I'm actually outdoors, standing on my porch, because it ain't come yet. And I want this package put in the palms of my hands when it arrives. And I was willing to hang out there till 9 o'clock, because sometimes the post takes till 9 o'clock to get here. I don't care. It's like the meme. I'm smoking a cigarette, waiting by the freaking mailbox. And sure enough, in about 10 minutes after being home, I get the delivered on porch scan. And I look down the street one way, look down the street the other way. There ain't even anybody walking around on the sidewalk or in the street. Usually we have some kids in the street or people walking around or something. Nobody. Crickets. And definitely nobody from USPS. And sometimes when that happens, it'll show up later that evening or what have you. With this, I was not letting this one slide by. So it never arrived at all. Delivered on porch. eBay's sending me, congratulations, your item delivered emails. Fuck you, eBay. But what does it know? All it knows is the scan, and it goes by that. So now the seller can see through eBay that it's been delivered, even though it hasn't. So what are you supposed to tell the seller now, and what are you supposed to tell PayPal now when it's got a delivery scan and you have no item? I think you're kind of shit out of luck there and getting your money back. So luckily you can actually call and talk to a human being at USPS. You have to circumvent the auto thing. There's a way to do it. It's very frustrating, but you can do it. I got a very intelligent gentleman on the phone, thank goodness. I stressed the rarity of the item that was delivered and why that's why it was insured. And I told him, if I don't have someone call me by noon tomorrow, I'm going up to the annex and raising holy hell. And so I went to work the next day, and sure enough, I actually got a phone call from USPS. Now, it wasn't the annex where they have to begin the search for the package, because that's where the carrier would have picked it up. And this isn't the first rodeo I've had to deal with packages being scanned and not here. But I think the guy and I on the phone both agreed, well, maybe it'll show up today. Maybe that last scan was actually getting put on the truck at 5:25 in the evening, and it should be out today. It's like, yeah, it's possible, but we're gonna have the annex look into it, because they can GPS where that scan took place, the delivery scan. The last time this happened, I actually got an apology email that specified, yeah, we looked into it, and when the delivery scan happened, it wasn't anywhere near your porch. I was like, I know, standing on it. So I got a big, long apology email from the head of the annex. So lunchtime comes around at work, and I'm like, well, again, I'm not just sitting on my hands. I ain't heard anything again back from USPS at that point. From a discussion in the morning, I haven't seen any new scans or anything with the package. So I go down to the annex, and I do what I have to do at the annex now. The first person that comes to the window, how can I help you? I'm like, can I speak to your manager? I don't even tell them what it's about, and I refuse to take no for an answer. I'm like, this line is going to keep getting longer behind me until you close today, or you have someone remove me physically. I need to speak to your manager. And the manager comes up to the window, and I tell him the same fucking thing. Let me speak to your manager. You got to go 2 levels up at my annex, because it is a travesty. So I go 2 levels up, and it turns out that's the person that emailed me before with the apology. And so, boom, yeah, we've been having issues. Well, because you're switching carriers all the time. I have a different carrier every night. And of course, I get the same bit I got before last time I went down to the annex. Well, we researched the scan. We need to retrieve it as far as the package is concerned. I'm like, retrieve it. So that means they delivered it to the wrong address. So, you know, your heart goes into your stomach, because if someone gets old 78s, what are they going to do with them? They're probably going to throw them out. I don't even think because they don't even look worth selling. They're old 78s. Unless you know who these artists are, just by happenstance. So they were 10 digits off on the house number. And I ended up getting the package later on that day. Unbelievable. Let me go get the box, and I'll show you how the box was packed, which is other craziness. So here's the box. Also, it's for 2 78s. It's a big old giant box. So I'm like, what in the hell is this? I open the box, and for padding, this is what's in here. A bunch of ripped up paper and a bunch of PlayStation game controllers, empty. Like I said, this guy sold video game shit. This is what was his packing material. So I'm like, oh my god, these records, are they even in here? Did he just send me a bunch of empty game controllers? Have I been scammed? A bunch of empty game controller packages? Nope. The records are in there, and they were wrapped up tighter than a drum and in perfect shape. Unbelievable. Here it is. Take it out. Clarence Williams and his orchestra, Chocolate Avenue. About as minty as you're ever going to see an 89-year-old 78. I didn't know whether to scream, cry, laugh. I didn't know what to do. But there it is. And then here's the other record that I got. Because I needed to get a hold of the goddamn seller to find out if they were real or not, or alive or dead. Lightnin' Hopkins, Nothing But the Blues on the Herald label. And on the B side is Early Morning Boogie, Lightnin' Hopkins and his guitar. Really rare 78 from Lightnin' Hopkins. And I do have a 78 player. It's in New York, so I need to get it back down here. But there you go. And the Clarence Williams is on the Vocalion label, which is a very iconic old label from the 30s or earlier as far as 78s go. So there you have it. A record that basically deserves to be in the Library of Congress. Well, they may already have a copy, or the Smithsonian or something like that. The first known recorded music from Sun Ra, even though he didn't play on the record. The first listing in the Bible. Unbelievable. And it so happens, I got a text on Instagram, or a message, whatever you call it, from Tone Scott, out in Los Angeles, and as it turns out, he's now writing or editing for Goldmine Music Magazine, and is doing a feature on the vinyl community and collectors of rare records, and so wanted to feature me in the article. I believe the article comes out on Monday, the 17th of October, so that's really cool. So you should see this record featured in said article. Honored. It's very cool. I had to have someone come over and take photos. So yeah, and then I have one more record here I'm going to show and talk about, just because it's related to Joe Bussard and that documentary. That's Blind Willie Johnson on Folkways. And I believe the original of this came out on Folkways in 1957. This has the song Dark Was the Night, Cold Was the Ground, which is a song he played, I believe. Maybe I saw it on another video of his, maybe not in that documentary, but he considered it to be one of the greatest songs ever written, and he's not wrong. It's an unbelievable blues track. I think Blind Willie Johnson was from Texas, and this has remembrances and an interview on it on the A side, and then the B side has a lot of the tracks. But this is a 1962 copy, so 5 years later. The 1957 copies go for a lot, in nice shape, a couple $100 and up. This copy was $30, and it's these Folkways. This is pretty much identical to the issue in 1957, if not completely identical. I mean, and what's nice, this has the original booklet in it, and these are really hard to come across with the original booklet still. The booklets have all been lost or gone because they got pulled out and set aside or thrown out. Here's the record. Fantastic. This is up there for me as far as the blues stuff. Amazingly soulful, great playing on the guitar, and yeah, the story on here is done by Samuel B. Charters. So Blind Willie Johnson on Folkways. Some good old stuff here. Trying to think if there's anything more here to this story. It pretty much sums it up. When I went to stand in line at Noble Records for the 3rd anniversary, I got there at 5 in the morning, and you got to pass the time. So I told this story to the guys in line there, and at about 6:25 the story ended. So about an hour and 25-minute story. There was a lot of other shit that went on that I'm not telling you about with all this. But 34 minutes here. Yeah, we'll let you run. Peace.